Like, invite this stuff up the ramp and throw the force field down. Pulling stuff back. Right now, Terran has the good concave. Protoss does not have the good concave because his pylon's in the way. If Protoss backed up to having this arc and Terran came up on the ramp, you could force field behind the Marauders and F them up. So, we've been going for about 30 minutes now. I might end up having like a 50-minute daily. I hope no one complains about that, as we are doing this pretty painstakingly slowly. So here comes the bust out. More little techniques, like we're going to see this. We're going to start to see how little stuff adds up over time. And then I'm going to pause in just a moment and pontificate on the camera. So here he comes charging down. Very normal. 1A. I can just tell you right now, or I guess in this case, 3A. That's a pretty cool hotkey setup. Look, just attack. Notice getting bottlenecked. These units in the back were unable to fire, and then the scoot forward. That scoot forward, so critical. Notice these two stalkers back here still not participating in the battle. And then now that everything gets up there, now that everything's finally up there, alright, cool. Yeah, alright. Now, I'm going to explain how your brain is an asshole. What happened is that your brain will look at that fight, you know, the adrenaline will be flowing. I don't know about you, but I still get all, you know, in battles and stuff. You know, it's fun, it's cool, it's a fun game, that's why we play it. So you see this battle, you get all pumped up, and there's the fight, and you put up your Guardian Shield, and you're trying to make sure you make guys and make probes, and at the end of the day, you look at this battle, you look at this, and you go, I am victorious. My name is Red Protoss, and I have defeated the Blue Terran, and you put it in the archives, you tell your mom, you know, you get excited, but I want to point out that if you control this a little bit better, just a tiny teensy inch of a bit better, poking this out, look at how these 5 guys are not participating in the battle. If you had scooted yourself forward just a little bit, you would have been able to win this with 5 Stalkers left over instead of 4, and maybe both of those Immortals could have survived. And now you're in an even better situation. It's not just that you won, it's by what margin that you managed to win. So, we're not going to be doing too much more specific analysis on either player, but we're going to start doing some general stuff. I love... Do you get a message saying achievements disabled? I don't know about you, but every time I'm microing, it's just like, your friend unlocked the achievement where he made a worker at the 8-minute mark, and I'm like, whoa, I don't care. But yeah, see, now, in the meantime, in the midst of all this, it looks like Fulcrum made another barracks. And, you know, I guarantee you this is what happened. I actually am so positive of this. I almost don't know why I'm rewinding, just because this has happened a million times before. We're going to speed this up. Now, what we're going to do is we're at ×8, watch the mini-map, and watch this money at the same time. I guarantee that when Fulcrum moved out to attack, that the money skyrocketed. Alright, so, yeah, moving out to attack, we hit the 500 range. And we're approaching 500 again. Oh no, see, here's a little battle at the front. And there's the battle going on. Look at the money, just getting up to 500. Very, very, very ordinary thing to happen. If this is a problem you are having, that is good. That is the problem that you should be having at that stage of your development. Is that when you start moving out with a force, you naturally kind of want to look at it. You naturally kind of want to focus on it when there's the battle. Your eyes want to do that. But I want you to note that whatever you're looking at, your brain should be somewhere else. Your eyes moving these Marauders, what your hand should be doing is selecting these barracks with a hotkey. It doesn't look like our player has a hotkey for that. I would definitely recommend doing that. But your brain should be going, oh my god, I got to spend my money. Anytime you're looking at your money, you should kind of be going, oh, and then what building do I need to be making? And then when you're sending the guy to go be building, you should be looking at the mini-map to make sure that no units are going here. You always want to be thinking of that next step. But even so, again, approximately, this is the correct sort of thing. Big Marine Marauder forces, we like skews towards Marauders early on because we can do cute things in small numbers. This is a composition that's almost exclusively armored. So it looks like Protoss using his advantage to throw down an expansion. He's being very active about checking out all this stuff. Great. And look at this, it's not a blind patrol. It's him actually actively checking that stuff out. Perfect. Great. Here's a transfer with the probes, and this is the sort of stuff that when it happens, you should go, wait a minute, you know, where I have an expansion that's finished. I'm going to transfer my workers, and then you look back and you just like don't really have that many workers, and that is the first huge bump. That is perhaps the biggest bump that you'll notice when you are, you know, silver bronze, gold, is that you just don't have enough workers when you expand. That is perhaps the most typical ordinary experience, because, I mean, even like Terran, this is not actually that many workers. Yeah, it's almost 24 workers. Whoa, but if you get an expansion up, well, that's 12 at each. It's not really that many workers. So that's why you heard me say right at the start, you should always kind of want to be having more workers there, because it's one of those mysterious things that at the time you're like, well, I can just not make a worker now so I can get a barracks earlier. I could just not make this worker so I can get an engineering bay earlier. And everything feels fine and dandy until you take an expansion and you're like, wow, this expansion's worthless. I have like 4 guys mining. Can't do garbage with it, right? So it's one of those things that it becomes more apparent as you start playing longer games and the strategies start developing themselves over time. Yes, and all that sort of good jazz. So more about planning, more about establishing a plan for the next game based upon what you saw in this game. A lot of learning people tend to attribute in-game. They tend to think, oh, this is the situation I'm at now. What do I want to do next? What I tend to do, and what a lot of players do, is they say, wow, this is what I'm doing, and this kind of feels shitty. I will do a different thing next game based upon what I have felt. So, for instance, Terran. I guarantee you Terran cannot both get tanks and make out of all these barracks at the same time. I promise you that, especially with no expo. I promise you that. But at each stage in this game, I think that Fulcrum had a pretty reasonable explanation for doing every action, like, I have a lot of money, I'll make 2 barracks so I can keep building stuff. I have more money, I want to make another barracks and get some marines so I have some variety. Well, I also kind of need tanks so I can start doing more pushing to him. I mean, it makes sense one at a time, but it's the entire connection of that that's the real issue. So you might just want to say something like, next game, I am not going to make this 5th barracks. Or next game, I'm not going to make this 4th and 5th barracks, and I'm just going to try to macro better. I'm going to try to cut those things down. What good players do is try to shave more and more and more away. The perfect strategy is not the strategy that, you can't add anything more to. It's a strategy that you can't take anything more away from. So yeah, we have some nice little control going on here. Be careful with spamming your force fields. This is an excellent technique if you wanted to retreat. This is not an excellent technique if you wanted to get in his face and kill stuff. So it looks like Lost in Space just is, throwing down some more pylons, getting a good area to warp in. Cool. I like the way Fulcrum's controlling this army, inching forward with the tanks, trying to be very careful, keeping a great concave. Ooh, look at that concave. That is just fantastic concave right there. Oh, yeah. And, oh man. And, there was one little decision there that I think really punished Lost in Space. Now, I want you to see right here, target fires this tank. Look how much damage all those units took as they were trying to get into there. I mean, it's another one little thing. And you've heard me point out a ton of little things in this game. You've heard me say, about pulling probe off at the start, doing this, oh, we target fired that. I can tell you that that's kind of painful. Oh, he didn't juke his units forward when he's trying to bust his contain. And I want to highlight to you that it's not necessary at all to watch every one of your games and to pick out 100,000 different things you could do better. As long as you're picking out like 3 or 4, good, great. What makes a good player is not someone who's like, I'm going to be A+ by Wednesday. It's the player who says, all right, I'm just going to make sure I improve 1 or 2 things every single game. And this is explicitly what I'm trying to work on. Nobody gets good by just sitting down and going, hey, I'm just going to play. Because I have known some people who shall remain nameless who friggin' played more than Boxer. And they stagnated because every time they lost, they're just like, and then they just played another game. It's not good. It's not good. Just focus on little things. And honestly, what's delightful at this level of play at Gold is that you can select the elements of play that you want to work on. If you have a sufficient amount of leaks. Like for me, I just had horrendous macro. I had just the worst friggin' macro in the world. And I'm just going to keep talking as Fulcrum just eventually pushes in here. This is vastly too hard to overcome with just 3 unit producing structures, unless you have some miracle sentry action. So as we just sort of speed along, I'm just actually going to finish this replay and then I'll finish that thought regarding Le Macro. Immortal, trying to get in there. I always imagine crabs every time I see an Immortal. The animal, that is. Yes, I always imagine, you know, little immortal just there with his clippers trying to find somewhere. Ah, immortals are so cool. So Lost in Space. Love what Fulcrum's doing here. Fulcrum playing so smart. Strategically perfect. Expanding. Continuing to macro, containing at the front, not getting over eager, and having all these Marine Marauders sprint ahead of the tank, using that tank for support, containing at the ramp. Look at this positioning of the tank. Can't be hit from the high ground, can hit things that are coming down this ramp. This is the kill zone right here. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Great, excellent. I cannot emphasize to you how good that is. There are platinum level players who will avoid doing this. Look at yourself and go, yeah, I contained him, I'm awesome. And look at this, poking forward to do a little bit of damage, and now still inching forward with the tanks, not too far. I mean, Lost in Space is having the uphill battle. No one's going to come up from this. I don't care if this is, you know, Tester playing. Tester's not going to win in this spot. And here comes the last bust. Look at the kill zone. Great scan, great concave. You know, solid play. Solid play, strategically. That was a good, solid play. You should acknowledge that sort of thing. You should pat yourself on the back. Because, hell, that's why we play games. Oh, man. Yeah, just like that. Oh, should play Terran next time. But yeah, so I mean, in summary, we saw that both players had a decent amount of leaks that they could have improved. We focus a lot on the little things, the little tiny timings. Overall strategy, fine. No problem at all with that basic idea of want a lot of Marauders at the start. I want to add more tanks in. I should really start getting some more Marines in there. Fine. Great. Getting Gateway and Robo units and then expanding. Perfect. I mean, we have the Robo, we can deal with like cloaked units. We have the Immortals, so we can deal with those heavy hitting units. We have a good amount of Gateway units just for the solid meat of the army. We can expand kind of fast. Perfect, perfect, perfect. But just want to work on those solid little things. Because I remember when I was trying to get good at StarCraft, one day, I mean, I had a million things horrible about my play, and I knew it, and I was like, oh, it's terrible. I had to go to like a Newbies Anonymous and everything. It was tragic. But the thing I decided I wanted to work on was macro. I thought having a lot of stuff was cool, because I played Zerg, and my brain was like total Overmind style. I was like, I want to have a lot of the Zerg. So all I did in any game, literally the only thing I ever did, was first I set up a good hotkey setup. I used 5 to 0 as my hatches, 5 SZ, 6 SZ, 7 SZ, and I would just spam that all game long. I would spam that all game long. And you know what would happen when I looked back at a replay? I would look at every single hatchery and make sure that right when a larva popped up, it just popped into an egg immediately. That's all I looked for about a week or two. I mean, it wasn't huge. It's not like, for 8 months, I just macroed. I lost everything, but I trudged forward. You know, it was just like, it was probably like maybe 100 games. 100, 200 games. I played a lot. Yeah, so, but it was still, period of time-wise, wasn't very big. And after a week or 2 weeks, suddenly, I had no problems with macro for like the rest of my friggin' life, right? Just because I said, in this period, that is what I'm gonna work on. So eventually, I mean, and then suddenly in all my games, I was just going like lurker laying against Terran, and I could just win huge percentages of games purely because I had like 8 more control groups than every other Zerg player who people were playing against. Macro became my crutch. Sure, I was working on other things as well. I was working on control, which is still one of my big problems, is that I personally mentally value macro over controlling my stuff well, so I'm trying to balance that. My strategies, had a few flaws in them that I would kind of neglect to fix. So I was trying to fix those as well. But I still had this crutch for macro that made me feel awesome. So if you're like a gold level player, what would make you feel really good, right? How about getting a lot of upgrades up? Seems silly. It's fun, right? Constantly making